The agenda is a presentation and discussion regarding informational update from United Way of Pinal County with the CEO, Alan Villalobos. Good morning.
Chairman McClure, Vice Chairman Surdy, Supervisor Goodman, Supervisor Miller, Supervisor Vitiello. Thank you so much this morning for allowing me to present to you about United Way and the important work that we're actually doing here in Pinal County. Last time I came here was when I first started with United Way 7 years ago. So I think it was time for me to come and share the good work that United Way is doing here. I am not alone here. I have the United Way Board Treasurer here, Kelly Sarceski from Invernergy, right in front of me here. We live on unprecedented times in Pinal County. The world is looking forward and looking at Pinal County for areas of energy, electric vehicles, AI technology, and construction, to name a few. Nonprofit organizations and government agencies have the opportunity and responsibility to provide as many resources as possible to prepare our people to take the jobs currently available and those coming soon. Pinal County wants to be part of that effort, and today I would like to share what we have begun doing here in Pinal County. If anything else, you guys will see that in my presentation, the word that is probably gonna stand up is improving people's lives in Pinal County. We were founded in 1981, so that means that this year United Way is turning 45 years old, and we are celebrating obviously that throughout the year. We would like to begin obviously our presentations with the Pinal County Supervisors, but we are planning to actually go to every single city of Pinal County and present also to City Council individuals as well. Our mission of United Way of Pinal County is pretty much utilizing the resources that we have, the relationships and the leverage that we have to improve people's lives in Pinal County. Our vision is for everyone in Pinal County to achieve their highest potential. And that's the goal of United Way of Pinal County when it comes to giving and supporting programs here in Pinal County. Our programs are twofold. We have two main initiatives. We have education as one of the important programs or initiatives, and we have the Financial Stability Initiative. In education, we have the Reading by Third Grade initiative in partnership with Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I'm sure you guys have actually heard about this, and perhaps some of your grandkids or children have been benefited by this particular program. On a yearly basis, we actually send or provide 130,000 books mailed to residents in Pinal County. All 21 zip codes are open to individuals from areas from San Manuel, Santan, Apache Junction, Queen Creek, Maricopa, Casa Grande. All of the cities in Pinal County are benefiting by this program. Currently, we have over 3,000 children currently enrolled in the program. It's actually one of our biggest programs here in Pinal County when it comes to education. And I'm just going to give you stats as to why we actually focus on the education area. Only 27% of third graders read a proficiency in Pinal County. 14% of the adults are without a high school diploma. 26% of the residents aged 16 to 19 years of age are not enrolled in high school and lack a high school diploma. That's the reason why we focus on education as primary, one of the primary initiatives of United Way. Our next program is our Family, Friends, and Neighbor program. We impact, since we started this program, 4,050 families served in Pinal County. This is funded by, first things first, tobacco funding, and United Way received that funding in 2010, and we continue to provide services to that. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, that funding was reduced. So we went from 350 families to 250 families in Pinal County taking care of this or being benefited by this program. But currently, we have 250 families enroll. The Family, Friends, and Neighbor program is a program that provides training and resources to families that are taking care of a child that is not their child. It's like an in-home childcare providers. Many of these individuals are grandparents, uncles, aunts, individuals who have taken on that responsibility of raising a child. So we want to provide those families with the resources that they need in order for them to have that child reach their highest potential. The Path to Success GED Scholarships is a program that I started about 4 years ago during the pandemic. And this program actually provides vouchers to individuals who want to finish their high school diploma or get an equivalent of a high school diploma here in Pinal County. We work very closely with all the branches of Central Arizona College to provide for that. We have so far in the program provided 398 vouchers to individuals, and we have basically helped individuals graduate. As you know, one of the main reasons why people don't get hired in a lot of the corporations is because they don't have a high school diploma. So what we do is that we help them achieve that so they can be employed. Next. We would not be able to do this without the support of these corporations in our community. So we wanted to thank all these corporations here who have from day one has supported United Way. Our partners in education are the technical institutes, the trade and vocational careers, First Things First, the Imagination Library, and other organizations that he have worked throughout the year. Our financial stability program provides transportation assistance, car repair, and bicycles to individuals that are actively looking or have a job. These individuals are basically referred by case managers in the different organizations that they are gone to. We give a bicycle brand new bicycle, a helmet, and a lock to individuals that are actively looking for work or have a job. But that referral has to come from a case manager. We work with agencies like Arizona at Work, Horizons, Casa Grande Alliance, and many other organizations who actually refer individuals that are actively looking for work or have a job. The Skilled Workforce Program is one of our newest programs. It has a year and a half of being instituted. And what we discovered when we were funding the GED scholarships is that many of the individuals who were planning to graduate, they were actually looking into getting into a trade and vocational career. So it was natural for us to help in transition to that, you're excited about education, let's continue in that path. So we created up to $3,000 of support to individuals or assistance to those individuals who want to pursue a trade and vocational career, 2 years or less. We have provided 52 students since we started the program with 15 different trades, including electricity, air conditioning, cosmetology, barbering, plumbing, all those individuals that want to go into those careers. We call it an assistance because it actually helps individuals not only with tuition, but also if you need a computer to get to work, if you need boots, if you need equipment, if you need tools, that funding is also available to those individuals so they can get to work right away. The financial education piece is the newest program. I hired a financial educator in October of last year. All that person does is provide financial education throughout Pinal County. We have actually provided 59 classes, 547 children and adults have been exposed to financial education, and 90% of the participants said at the after the class that they will spend differently. That's very important. Just to give you some stats about financial education, less than 25% follow a budget in Pinal County. That's the percentage of individuals who approximately don't follow a budget here in Pinal County. Approximately 25% of the households pay more than 30% of their income on housing. Obviously, I'm talking to the choir over here as I see you're nubbing, saying yes, that's true. And 11% of our population are below poverty, meaning that they make less than $25,000 a year. So financial education, I believe, and I am completely convinced, that is a tool that is needed here in Pinal County to improve people's lives. And that's the reason why United Way is doing that. It's not a very popular program when it comes to funding, but we are planning to actually make it popular. So we are we're investing, United Way investing, and hopefully when we have some numbers behind us, we can actually go out there and talk to the financial institutions and banks to provide financial support for this particular program. These are the organizations that are supporting, in part, the financial education part. Many of these are employees that are supporting the financial education, and we also get donations online for a financial education piece as well. Other community services, United Way has, for the last 2 years, paid for a tool that is called the volunteerpinal.org. It's basically an online service for individuals and organizations who want to place their events or activities in the community to improve volunteer opportunities. All you need to do is to go to volunteerpinal.org. You sign up your program there. You can manage volunteers through that particular program to text and emails, let them know what's going on, and as soon as something is going on with your organization, your set of volunteers will actually be triggered to approach or to volunteer in your efforts. The next program, it's our, what we used to do directly was the VITA program. We're no longer doing that, and instead, we have prepared, or United Way has a tax preparation services online. So individuals can actually do their taxes on their own, or they can ask somebody to help them, and they can go to myfreetaxes.com to do that. It's a very easy way to do that, and at the end, you don't pay anything to do your taxes. Single care prescription card is something that we have been giving for many years. This is a prescription savings card that we give to everyone in Pinal County that we have access to. And what this does is that allows that individual to save up to 80% of their prescription drug on top of what they have already saving already with their insurance and so on. So far, we have saved over $3 million of savings in our prescription drug program as well. All of these programs that I have spoken to you this morning, I've shared with you, these programs are in our website, unitedwayofpc.org. If you go to apply for help, all the applications for these programs are online. This is something that we developed during the pandemic as we were locked in our homes and not being able to provide face-to-face services. What we did is that we developed our website to provide for those services. And another thing that happens with this too is that United Way of Pinal County was able to reach then the entire Pinal County area. So we have applicants from Santan all the way to San Manuel, to Maricopa, to Casa Grande, Santan, of all these programs, and we're able to provide that. We're delivering bicycles through Amazon. So if an individual in Santan needs a bicycle or in San Manuel, all I need to do is to go to our Amazon account and send a bicycle to them. And that way we actually help those. Vouchers are basically numbers given to them. They go to the website for their GED program and they can do that. We work with the trade and vocational institutions. We sent the money directly to their accounts. And so the student actually get credited by that. And that's how we actually help people. So everyone in Pinal County basically are benefited from this. Most of our employees also in United Way live here. I happen to be living in Maricopa, Mr. Vitiello. And I call Maricopa my home for the last 7 years. So other community involvement, we have United Way plans and participates in our community resources event. This March 25th, we're going to have our Community Connect in Casa Grande, and United Way is planning to bring all kinds of resources to community members there, from health to barbers to all kinds of different things that provide services to families there, including ID. We'll pay for individuals who they need to update their ID or they need new IDs. We will actually help them achieve that. We have our back to school event program coming up also in July, and that actually provides school supplies to children in our school districts. We have had basically over 1,000 families every time we actually do that event in Casa Grande. We administer the post-secondary scholarships to the Randolph community. Those of you who have been involved in that community, United Way administers $400,000 in scholarships to that community in behalf of the SRP. We have done it for the last 3 years, and we have 52 applicants, and we're in the process of the application process right now. That administration is going to be for the next 17 years. United Way is going to provide that administration of those funds for students who, individuals who live in Randolph or are descendants of Randolph. That's how we actually provide those services to them. When it comes to the summer, we do the water, heat, and relief and hygiene kits. We provide those to police departments and also to other nonprofit organizations. So we are very involved in that. We have fund gardens and books to elementary schools in different areas in Pinal County, Coolidge, Eloy, Arizona City, and so on. And when it comes to disaster response, we have been actively helping on that regard. A few years back when we have the electricity blackouts and Coolidge in Arizona City, United Way was actually instrumental in bringing the corporations in our community to donate to the individuals who were affected by those. Thanks to Supervisor Miller's office, at that point was Mike Cruz involved in that. We actually got engaged in that effort, and we're really happy to do that. Every time there's a disaster, either here or anywhere in the United States, United Way actually puts a link to anybody in Pinal County who wants to donate to that. We are sensitive not only to our community here, but also our members throughout the United States. We thrive, or we are very proud of our transparency and accountability. Not only we are transparent and accountable to the Board of Directors of United Way here in Pinal County, but also there's two watchdogs organizations in America, the Charity Navigator and the Candid. And those organizations actually evaluate the organizations and give either 1, 2, 3, or 4 stars, depending on the quality of the services and the programs, and also the accountability, financial accountability of the organizations. United Way has achieved basically the platinum transparency with Canon, which is the highest transparency that you can have in a nonprofit organization, and also Charity Navigator, the 4-star as well. So for the last 4 years, I would say, United Way has been on the top when it comes to that. Well, thank you for the time. I really do appreciate it. Your time is very valuable to me, and thank you for all the work that you guys do here for Pinal County. And if anything that United Way it will be useful in your districts, or support you guys, please let us know.
Oh, thank you very much. Listening to all that stuff, I know my wife runs a social service nonprofit, so a lot of the things you do is what she does as well. And I'm listening to, financial advisors, and I know they send people to school, and, some of the people in the Copper Corridor, they're making $12,000 a year, if that. And they come out and they're making $60,000 a year. Hit the jackpot, baby. What do I do with it? Wow. And then they, whoa, slow your roll. Here's what you need to do. Yeah. And it is amazing to see that transformation and help people out. But, as far as it goes, you have a very wide swath of what you do, and it seems to be fairly deep as well, which is very difficult to do. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question on you gave a percentage of our families make less than $25,000 or $25,000 or less. What was that number again? What percentage is that?
The 11% of the population in Pinal County live up below poverty line.
11%.
Or 25%, 11% of them, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the 27% and the 25%, we're talking about 150,000 people. Sounds like a small percentage, but when we actually turn it into individuals, being the fact that we have 500,000 people now in Pinal County, it's 150,000 people that are actually being affected by this program, so it's very important.
There's a lot of people, Steve, that if they had minimal jobs, they're making $850 a month in Social Security, and there's 2 of them. Yeah. That's great until one of them passes away. Then all of a sudden it's $850 a year, and how do you survive on that? You can't pay rent, you can't pay utilities. Do I buy food or do I buy my prescriptions? How do I get around? It's tough.
I agree, and because that number will kind of dovetail into our next presentation. So I just, Alan, I'm thankful for all the work you do, and, you know, you can always contact my office if you need anything.
I know, sir.
So, but thank you for that work that you've done, and I think the education part is fantastic, that'll lift people out of their, that'll lift their quality of life up quite a bit if they have skills that they can use in a workforce. So,
Correct.
thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Did you have something,
Yes.
Supervisor Zerdy?
So there is a national United Way and local, just like Chamber of Commerce. The National Chamber of Commerce doesn't always work in our favor, whereas the local ones do because they're local.
Correct.
And I believe that the National United Way has kind of crossed, not with what a board like us would believe in.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference of national and local, and that if you're donating to national, it's not staying here? And explain the difference between national and local.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question, Mr. Surdy. The international now, United Way Worldwide, was created in 1971 as a resource organization for the local United Ways. In reality, the local United Way is an independent organization, and we only give 1% of our total income to the international organization. They provide, and in turn, they provide marketing and also relationships with the corporations in America. So we called, you know, those of us who have been with United Way for 29 years like me, we call it that United Way is a horizontal organization. We actually make decisions locally. We have the board of directors locally who handles the agenda and the programs and services of United Way. And just to keep the name and actually those resources available, we sent that 1% to United Way. So I agree with you. There's some issues and there's some things that United Way International has adopted that Pinal County United Way, and personally, I do not agree with. So here, we do our decisions based on the climate of our organizations and our community, and that's how we're gonna keep it, you know, for as long as I'm here.
So what I wanted to, anybody that's listening or watches this, that if you donate local, do not donate international, because all of the money stays here.
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Vitiello, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, thank you for that, and very educational. But 23 years in the bicycle business, I might be able to help you out financially. So if you want to take my info, please do so, and let me know if I could maybe save you guys money on those that you purchase, because I have connections with, I noticed, Hyper and many other cycling companies. So I'd be more than happy to see if they're willing to help you out, and we can figure out the
Yeah,
logistics.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Please.
I didn't know that.
23
Otherwise,
years
I
in the
would have
bike
approached you a long time ago. But anyway, thank you so much,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Vitiello.
26 years in the gun business, but you guys don't need any guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Supervisor Goodman, I see either a thought bubble or a smudge on my glasses above your head.
I was just sitting here listening to the presentation and then all the comments, and I really don't have anything else to add. I think you guys have said it.
I'm impressed.
I don't even have a story, so that's probably.
I'm amazed, actually. It must be a smudge in my glasses. Okay.
you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Villalobos.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
all you do.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is a presentation and discussion of the unincorporated Pinal County Housing Plan by consultant Martina Kuhl. You're up, ma'am. I didn't say Heather Patel. I called her.
Yes, I do know that. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. I just wanted to introduce Martina. I am Heather Patel, and I'm with the Office of Budget and Finance. Before I introduce her, I wanted to just say that this plan started and came out of our internal task force of several different departments, including the county manager's office, the housing authority, community development, economic development, and then the Office of Budget and Finance. And so it's definitely been a team effort to address and look at some of our housing issues within the county. And we have brought in some expertise in the form of Martina. And she did also work with Michael Baker on this plan to put this together for you to receive today. And so I will now hand it over to Martina Kuhl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, supervisors. Glad to be here. We have been working on our housing plan for unincorporated Pinal County for the past 15 months. And so this is a culmination of many internal housing task force meetings, individual meetings with each of you to discuss your concerns and your thoughts and ideas, and multiple surveys and other types of outreach. And I'm going to share all of that along with a proposed action plan with you this morning. So why a housing plan? Really, the purpose of the housing plan is to support economic vitality through the focus of capacity and resources on housing availability and housing affordability. So the housing plan was actually funded through a grant from the Arizona Department of Housing, so that was a benefit to the county. And they required 5 elements be included in the housing plan. The first is a housing needs assessment, and that was required not to just look at housing affordability, but to look at housing availability and housing needs across all income levels and all housing types. It requires that we implement housing initiatives to reduce barriers and increase the production of housing. Requires the implementation plan, which I'm going to be discussing with you today, which in this case is focused on existing Board of Supervisor approved policies. It requires an education plan that communicates the importance of housing to residents and to our potential partners and collaborators. And it requires a Board of Supervisor commitment to implement the plan and that commitment is intended to be completed by May. So this is what we've done over time. We did the housing needs assessment, and a housing opportunity areas assessment was first completed in June of last year. There was some updates done to that after Santan Valley incorporated, because obviously that changed our numbers significantly, although we did have to use available census data because we don't have primary data for Santan quite yet. We did outreach and education that included an employee survey and 2 resident surveys. We did the 2 town halls, one in Arizona City and one in Valley. And we did some other outreach and education. I'm going to talk a little bit about that before I talk about the actions. We also did a youth poster contest with the Housing Authority, and you've seen that art and congratulated the youth who participated in that. So that artwork graces the cover of the plan as well as the different sections, the dividers within the plan. Obviously, I'm here before you today talking about the draft plan. I'll be back in May to talk about the housing plan, and the intent is for it to be implemented beginning in the next fiscal year, and of course refined after that, because as all good plans go, we always have to be refining them. So before I talk about the action plans, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background information from the housing needs assessment. So one key element of the housing needs assessment is, how did we get where we are today? So it looked at kind of the cost drivers and housing demand over a 5-year period, beginning for some data. The latest was 2017 to 22, And then we also had more recent data when it came to looking at what was actually built. And that it really does make sense because as you have in migration, the housing market doesn't necessarily meet that demand immediately. It kind of has to catch up as the demand grows. So I think comes as no surprise to you, but in-migration accounted for 80% of all household growth between 2017 and 2022. And that was that whole pandemic era movement of people and the housing boom, the related housing boom that occurred. So among the people who were in-migrating to Pinal County, about half of them actually came from Maricopa County, which is common. That's the typical pattern over a long period of time, people moving in and out of Maricopa and Pinal County, kind of back and forth. And obviously that in-migration from Maricopa County tended to be in the northern part of Pinal County. So the people who were moving here from other locations tended to be older. They tended to be, and when I say older, kind of in that pre-retirement kind of age, like a lot of us. Most were previous homeowners. This data actually comes from the IRS, so we're able to actually, drill down to household level data. They tended to be higher income, with incomes about $10,000 higher than people who were not moving, and actually $20,000 higher than people who were moving out of Pinal County. So we saw a lot of that income increase that we see over a period of time as people actually bringing their money with them to the county, which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, because they were previous homeowners, they were looking for kind of a lifestyle. They were looking for a place where they would qualify for housing. Their primary goal was to purchase a single-family home. And so that's what drove then the development in single-family housing. So we see this, big boom in kind of the single-family housing market to address this in-migration. The other 20% of the household growth is what we would call natural household formations, and those are young people who are finally leaving the nest. They seem to go a little later these days than they did decades ago. So we have that, and then we have people who are divorcing, and so we take one family and create two families. So these households obviously tend to be younger. They tend to have lower incomes, and they tend to pursue rental units because that's what they can afford, especially in today's marketplace. So another impact on housing prices during this period was the continued demand for second homes as well as for investment properties. So about 3/4 of all of the property transfers, this is actually coming from assessor level data, about 3/4 of the homes that were transferred were intended to be used as a primary residence. We know this through the tax codes associated with the transfer. About 15% were as a non-primary residence, so that's, people who are coming for second homes, and rental or investment type properties were another 10% of what transferred between 2020 and 2024. So that also, every time you have a non-primary residence, that also tends to reduce the stock that's available for people who may want to purchase or rent. So that also has an impact on prices. If we look longer term, like a 10-year period, obviously in 2013, the latest data we had on home prices was 2023. So if we look at 2013, we know that we were kind of coming out of that post-recession housing market slump, and things were kind of starting to look better for the housing market. We had a median home value of $131,500. In 2023, that was $370,600, so almost a threefold increase in median home values. Rents, it was a little bit different. We had a $905 median monthly rent in 2013. And that 905 was, if we look back at that period of time, most rentals were single-family rentals. We did not have the apartment stock that we have now. And rents increased 150%, and we're at about $1,400 a month in 2023. So we had kind of already an improving market, and then with the pandemic era migration and housing boom, things really, really took off. So I want to talk a little bit about economically sustainable housing and the need for that housing. As a result of the housing needs assessment and the opportunity areas analysis, we looked at economically sustainable housing, which spans all the rental and homeownership markets, to address the need for housing across all income levels, so at every income level, not just the low income, as I mentioned before. So when we look at housing affordability and what people can afford, we look not just at income, but we look at other mitigating factors, such as financial leverage that might be available at different income levels, as well as things like debt, which tend to increase as income goes up. So when we look at renters, we identified that there were 296 renters and low-income renters in unincorporated Pinal County who need economically sustainable rental housing. And so these are renters who are paying more than 50% of their income on rent. And I think this is a lot of the households that we were talking about and where we heard about in the last presentation. So many of these households are married couples, including couples with and without children, which is also the largest cohort of households. So it would make sense that we also have the greatest need in that area. And when we consider what they can afford, what would be economically sustainable, when we're looking at a household, a single-person household headed by somebody age 65 or over, it's that very fixed income household. It's $271 a month, which is almost impossible to produce a unit that can rent at that low of a rent. And then we start looking upwards into the $1,100 range when we're talking about married couples who may have one or more incomes. So that is the need, that is the number who are paying more than 50% of their income already for rent, and what would be considered affordable for them, at least in 2023. Incomes are a little different today, but this, again, the analysis was based on 2023 data. So the next piece of it is, because rental units are not necessarily the most popular form of housing in most locations, we wanted to look at, okay, well, what can we do to balance that particular need? And so when we look at middle and higher income renters, there's 275 of them who are paying more than 50% of their income for rent, and that may be by choice or by circumstance. It's very difficult to say how they got there. But the ideal for households who are middle and higher income is that we would be able to provide home purchase opportunities for them, reduce the need for additional rental units, place them in a more financially stable situation. So it requires a certain level of capacity to do that. So what can households who are maybe middle and higher income able to afford when we look at a home purchase? Much lower for households age 65 and over due to the fixed income status of most of those households. But if we're looking at working households, we're looking at homes in the range of $212 up to $250. So something that's actually doable in the long term. Our final category of housing need relates to housing rehabilitation. Right now, there's a current waiting list of 36 households waiting to receive assistance with owner-occupied housing rehabilitation services. The Grants Department reports that they received 129 applications over the last 5 years, and have done 63 homes, 58 completed, and 5 in process. So this is an important program. Yes.
Supervisor Goodman.
Thank you, Chair. Could you go a little bit more in depth and maybe explain what it means, the rehabilitation? Is that actually taking an existing home and refurbishing it, or what does that all entail? What does that mean?
Yeah, so what housing rehabilitation means is that staff with the expertise goes in, they do a work write-up, they look at everything that needs to be replaced in a home. So roofs are very common, heating and cooling, hot water heaters, anything that may be represent a health and safety issue to the residents. A contractor is hired and brought in to fulfill that scope of work and bring that housing unit up to current standards.
So you've already identified 36 households, meaning families?
There are 36 households who are waiting right now.
So do you have you identified 36 houses that would fit that criteria?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
And you've got 129 applicants.
Yes, and so, but, yep, and 63 units have already been completed. So there were the 129 applicants. Some people were probably deemed ineligible because you have to meet the income criteria. It's community development block grant funds that are used for this. So you have to have a low and moderate income level in order to qualify for the assistance.
Okay. Supervisor Miller.
Supervisor Miller, thank you there, Assistant.
Thank you. I think you almost answered. So is there a financial obligation after the rehab of these? Because I remember back in the days with Rosa Bruce, she used to package a whole lot of different things, and most of the time there was still some type of a payback on a portion of it. Is it still that way, or is it free?
It's a good question.
Thank you, Chairman McClure, Supervisor Miller. We have several different facets to that program. So depending on the needs in the home, it could be an emergency repair, so maybe it is just a roof, and that is a grant. And then if we have a larger project that has a lot of different things that need to be addressed, then that could be our full rehabilitation program, and that results in a lien on the property. So long as they live in the home during the forgivable period, then it will turn into a grant at the end. But if they were to sell their home in the middle, then a portion is paid back to the county. We also have our demolition and replacement program. And so you know, of the 36, about a third of them are homes that need to be demolished and rebuilt.
Wow. Supervisor Goodman.
Thank you. So there's no sense of a mortgage or a rent that they pay on the house then, once it's been rehabilitated?
Correct.
They could be?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Goodman. There is no payment due to us. They may have a mortgage on their home that they have to continue to pay and stay current on in order to be eligible for our program, but there's no payment due to us.
So the houses that you're talking about, they're already living in these homes?
Yes,
They
they are.
just need to be brought up to standards?
Correct.
Okay, for health reasons or whatever the case may be. Okay.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of these rehabilitations are very extensive to the point where families have to be relocated for a period of time. Do we have the ability to do that in certain cases?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Miller. Yes, we have been able to do that in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Ms. Kuehl, move on. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Patel.
I warned her, so. And I want to add on the rehabilitation factor. And we had this huge housing boom in the early 2000s. I'm sure, if you've been here for any length of time, you're well aware of, all the development that took place, even the zombie subdivisions and, other things that occurred when the market failed. All of those houses are, if they were built in 2001, it's a 25-year-old home. And homes between the age of 20 and 30 years tend to need major systems repairs, especially if you have a household who's been lower income and may have been having challenges with home maintenance over time. So I would anticipate, just given the scope of development that occurred during that period of time, that we will actually see an increase in demand for this program over the coming years. So I want to talk a little bit about housing opportunity areas before I talk about our goals. So this is a housing opportunity area analysis that was conducted by Michael Baker International to take advantage of their data and mapping capabilities. We partnered up on this piece of it. So we were asked to look at county-owned land within areas that met a broader range of criteria that would help to promote long-term economic sustainability for our residents. So we wanted to make sure we were looking at residential development potential, along with things like, is there infrastructure and other development already there? How about employment? That's a major factor. What about utility, private utility availability and the strength of that if we're talking about its ability to serve more? Education, things like public transportation, and the services and supports that households need to live well, like childcare, fresh food. No flooding is always nice. Looking at lower poverty rates, because we don't want to have, if we're going to be, particularly if we're going to be building homes targeted to lower income households, we don't want to concentrate more lower incomes in any particular area, and also looking at zoning and future land use designations. So the result of that analysis was areas that were identified in 3 tiers. So the first tier is areas where targeted investment could catalyze neighborhood improvement and resource expansion. These areas also provide a great opportunity for upward mobility and long-term success because of the resources and amenities that are available. So we had 3 sites that were identified. One of them was the Adamsville Road site, which was dropped off the list because it was selected for other uses, and we landed on 2 other areas. One is the 11-mile corner area, where the housing authority is located, and there's a public housing development there, along with some other infrastructure on the property. And there has been some feasibility analysis conducted on that, early feasibility analysis conducted on that site. And then the second Tier 1 site is the Eloy Housing Authority sites. If you may recall, when the Eloy Housing Authority was folded into Pinal's housing department, there were some units that were absorbed, some units that are still up for consideration, purchase, negotiation. It's kind of an awkward environment at HUD right now. So we're trying to kind of parse through that, but there are multiple sites in and around Eloy that are also suitable, that would be in the county inventory, that would be suitable for development or redevelopment. So those are kind of our 2 primary sites, and you'll hear me talk about those when I talk about taking action. Then there's the tier.
Thank you. That guy right there. When you're talking about development, what does that look like? And you're taking current property that the county owns, and you're talking about a development. Are you going to be talking about what that looks like?
I'm going to talk about what that
I'm ahead of you then.
would like.
Okay.
I wish it was.
I'm not really ahead of you. My wife would tell me that I'm not ahead of her, but
Well,
I get it. I get it.
I get it too. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So I will talk about that in some detail. as I go forward.
Okay.
We also have some Tier 2 areas. So these are areas like, we're not really looking at these areas right now. They tend to be less developed, but there could be some opportunity for investment in the future. Pinal County continues to grow, and, that economic engine, we expect it to continue over the next 10 years. So there were 3 areas that were considered there, one area in Toltec, one in Oracle, and one in San Manuel. And then finally, there was a Tier 3, which these are areas that are really not suitable for development at this point. There could be some long-term, if there were to be significant changes or strategic policies or other specific goals implemented. And these are areas that include an overfield site that is adjacent right now to dairy farms, so it's not terribly suitable for residential development. A second site in Toltec. And then there were also other multiple sites that were looked at. However, those sites were primarily flood control sites, and so obviously they were not suitable for residential development. So with that information, taking that housing opportunity analysis, the housing needs assessment that was conducted, we established a goal to address 50% of the need for economically sustainable housing, and these are rounded up, from 296 rental units needed. We said let's look at 150 rental homes for the lowest income renters. So these are the people who are struggling the most with rental homes and are very unlikely at any time to be able to purchase a home or change to home ownership. 140 home ownership opportunities for middle and higher income renters, and the rehabilitation or replacement of 100 homes. So this is a 10-year goal, so it's not, we're not looking at doing this in the next year. So to address these needs, a dozen actions were identified in 3 focus areas. Before I discuss the actions, I'd like to share some about the results of the surveys that we did and provide an overview of how the actions relate back to policies that have already been approved by the Board of Supervisors. So the first survey we did was last summer. We actually surveyed Pinal County employees, and we got 506 complete responses, which represents about a quarter of Pinal County employees. 3/4 of them were in their prime earning years, which is that 35 to 64 age cohort. So of these 506 employees who responded, 125 are actually looking to purchase a home closer to work. We have 56% of them already saving for a down payment. And not surprisingly, these are family households. Most would like 3 bedrooms, including 37 who would actually need a 4-bedroom home. There is a strong preference for the American dream, single-family home with a garage, a fenced yard, and close to a park or a playground. We also had 19 employees who said they were looking for a place to rent closer to work. 14 of them were looking for 2 or more bedrooms. And most of them, 85%, would consider an economically sustainable rent to be less than $1,250. Most, only a third actually, had already saved for to be able to move in to an apartment or home closer to work, which generally includes utility and security deposits, and sometimes first and last month's rent. Just depends upon how many concessions might be offered at any given apartment complex. So we also did 2 resident surveys, one last September and one just in January. These are just complete responses. We had 255 complete responses to the September survey and 339 to the January survey. Both resident surveys, about half of the respondents had lived in their home for 10 or more years. And about half were age 65 and older and had no dependent children in the home. So that's kind of the, when we listen to the results, we want to keep in mind that these are the people who were responding to it. In the September survey, we asked about potential strategies, like these broad areas of strategies: rental, home ownership, housing preservation, rehabilitation type activities, as well as we asked about the types of homes that would be acceptable in their immediate community, someplace else in unincorporated Pinal County, so not in their backyard, and absolutely nowhere in unincorporated Pinal County. Those were the options that were given. So you can see that at that September survey, that revitalization or preservation, which includes those rehabilitation activities, received the highest rating as, yes, we agree with this, followed very closely by affordably priced homes for purchase. Rental housing did not receive a high rating. I don't have the exact number here. However, housing for employees who provide essential services or work locally were also received very favorably. So we're considered important to target housing to people who are working locally. Not surprisingly, all of the types of housing that received and of the highest, more than half said, this is acceptable in my area, a home on a large lot, of course. But not unsurprisingly, also modest home with a carport. So all of this is, single unit on a single lot. Manufactured home on a lot, about 6 of 10 said that's a good idea. And then when we look at kind of a higher density, if you will, a side-by-side duplex that looks like a single-family home, which these are currently being developed as multi-gen homes and the such, are also considered acceptable. So pretty much anything that looks like a single-family home, people were more than happy to see in their neighborhood, or for that matter, someplace else in Pinal County, unincorporated Pinal County. So the January survey, we did a deeper dive into the strategies. There were 20 strategic initiatives that were posted. Respondents were encouraged to look at that information before they responded to the survey, because it explained things in a greater level of detail. So people could, say what they found agreeable or disagreeable when they were looking through those strategic initiatives. So we had, again, kind of the broad categories of strategies, and then we also drilled down into specific actions, some of which I will be discussing with you today. So again, revitalization, that preservation, rehabilitation, ranked right up there at the top, followed right behind by homes for purchase. So there's a strong preference for people owning their homes, while affordably priced homes for rent, fewer than half of the respondents felt that they agreed with that type of housing being invested in. So when we asked about actions, I'm just sharing with you the ones that at least had a 70% or higher agreement rating, or close to that. One is to communicate. Residents would really like to know, what investments is the county making in housing? What is the county doing that is related to housing? They'd like to know where things are going and what's going on in the housing arena. So that's pretty much, everybody says, we strongly agree that this is important. That includes a developable sites map, which you'll see is on the action plan as part of kind of communicating, what's available and part of our education campaign. The preservation activities, so that includes housing rehabilitation activities, things like looking at revitalization areas and other types of incentives around improving community conditions. And then we asked about development incentives, and there's a fairly high agreement with, can we please test these first before we just, leap headlong into some kind of an incentive program that supports the goals that we're bringing forward in the plan. So after that particular survey, and then with some additional conversations with staff about what is appropriate, we ended up narrowing down the actions to a dozen in 3 focus areas, and those focus areas are capacity, preservation, and development. And I want to share with you a little bit about how these relate back to documents and other information that's already been approved. So when we look at the comprehensive plan, obviously has a lot about housing. It's a shared responsibility of both the private and public entities. We need to be looking at how do we accommodate people who have special housing needs. We need to be implementing our property maintenance code so that we can maintain neighborhood and community integrity. And then how do we go about preserving existing and historic buildings and neighborhoods? And then when we look at the comprehensive plan and the housing task force initiatives that were brought to you in September of 2024, there's a broad range of what we would call development incentives that include things like density bonuses, expedited processing, and other types of regulatory opportunities to kind of make the addressing the goals possible. The comprehensive plan speaks to activity centers and focusing our investments in those areas, and also the use of public land. When we look at the HUD consolidated plan, that primarily, while it supports all of these other activities as well, its primary contribution to this particular plan is the owner and renter housing rehabilitation. And then finally, when we look at capacity, the Housing Task Force initiatives also talk to having nonprofit partners, and looking at such opportunities, structural opportunities as a community land trust and special districts in order to accommodate economically sustainable residential development. All right. Next. Okay. I thought I saw a thought bubble. Okay, so here's the action plan. So years 1 through 3, we would be looking at creating a strong foundation. So how do we talk about creating a strong foundation? Well, we look at the 11-mile corner site because we already have that. There's already public housing on that site. The housing department is located there. It's under ownership, and there's been a preliminary feasibility analysis conducted on that site. So the goal would be to actually move through the development of that site. What that development looks like would hinge in large part on securing an appropriate partner for the development. And development is not an activity that I recommend that the county pursue as its own activity. It's something to be done in partnership or collaboration with another entity. And I'm strongly suggesting that you look at a nonprofit for that type of partnership. So as we look at that, we have this kind of systems and capacity work that can happen in the context of this development. So kind of everything kind of revolving around that. So the first is, as I mentioned, securing a development partner with preference to a nonprofit that has the capacity to develop either rental housing, particularly for seniors. There's a long list on the public housing waiting list, or home ownership opportunities. This site is suitable for either. So that's going to be kind of a primary goal, is putting out some kind of, call to potential nonprofit partners and other collaborators. Look, we're looking to develop this site. How can we work together on it? I'm also recommending that you take a look at the general funds that you have invested in nonprofits in the past who are implementing activities that align with strategic goals that you may have, and consider using some of that fund as seed money to bring a nonprofit to Pinal County and help them get started in this partnership. There's other long-term benefits for them, but some early seed money, I think, may really help with attracting the capacity that you may need. It also frees up staff to really focus on what's the policy, what are we trying to accomplish here, what resources are we bringing to the partner. The other benefits of bringing in a non-partner and kind of doing that early kind of investment in a housing nonprofit organization is that it creates that partnership. It kind of brings them local, creates the opportunity for them to bring in resources that the county does not otherwise have access to, such as Federal Home Loan Bank resources, any community benefits investments that may be negotiated over time. Could it be invested in additional housing opportunities to attain the goals of the plan? I understand that funding may have been suspended this year, but I'm bringing it to your attention as something that I noted when I was looking as a potential opportunity. Also, alongside that, from a capacity perspective, there is the desire and the need to recycle the investments that are being made. The question was made around the housing rehabilitation program. Are we seeking repayment of these resources? What are we granting them? What are we doing with them? So it's very important that the county, before it enters into a collaboration or a partnership, to state very clearly what its expectations are. And we do that through things like land use restriction agreements that say you're going to target to this population, this income level for this period of time at this purchase or rental price. So there's things like that that can also be done through a land lease. This is your land. You can do a land lease to the property owner, and that becomes also when somebody's looking for outside resources, it demonstrates a local commitment. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions, promissory notes. So there's a lot of legal documents around restricted real estate uses that just need to be communicated on the front end. This also helps lenders and investors understand exactly what the expectation is and exactly what they're investing in, because they're going to base their financial investment on what that underlying use requirement is. Obviously, implementing the community education campaign, and then from the development of economically sustainable housing, this is an opportunity, this site is an opportunity to pilot some of those incentives that have been discussed in the past. So those can be negotiated with the partner. What do we need to do at this specific site? And it helps us to understand what our potential partners find valuable in terms of incentives instead of us telling them, kind of negotiating with them. And that would be done strictly through policy. I know there are questions.
Oh,
You go ahead.
okay. While you were sitting here talking, I reminded of one of my brother-in-laws is in San Antonio, and he sits on a board of a nonprofit organization that in San Antonio, they've developed different locations for homeless individuals, and it's a gated community, very well structured. He sent me pictures and stuff like that, and I think that's not necessarily that's where you're headed, but that kind of scenario. Because I was sitting here thinking, is there nonprofits out there that help develop these kind of situations that I'm aware of? I don't know of anybody. I think they're all for profit.
Yeah, because
Yeah, Supervisor Goodman, so I think the challenge that we have here in Pinal County, and I've watched this, I've been working with Heather on, multiple things over the years, and what I watch is this constant, like, trying to grab capacity from, Maricopa County or Pima County, because while Habitat, Central Arizona Habitat has been coming down and doing some work here, we just don't have that, and CPLC as well, we just don't have that dedicated capacity. So I think that's why it's so important to bring that, especially given, how economically vital it is.
But Habitat is, they're paying that back. They pay the house back after
Right.
so many years at a 0% interest. It's not like homeless.
No, and that's the part that
It's a whole nother
that's what I'm trying to
facet.
put together here, because I do like what Habitat's doing and how they've structured that, and that, to me, that's the best way to help people, in my opinion, is to help them, but they reinvest back into the system, and then we're able to take it and help another entity. And basically, what I'm hearing, it sounds like we're talking about kind of a pioneering venture that we're going to be looking at too, that you've been talking about, that I've never heard of anybody else doing something like this, other than Steve always talked about back in the day, and I can remember sweat equity. Somebody wanted a home, and they would go and do some of the work in the home for the equity into the home. That was their down payment. And so there was a time when I think it was Farm Bureau that used to provide that type of financing, and
USDA.
and so anyway, this is,
But Habitat's the same way. You have to work on your house,
Yeah.
put in 400 hours or something like that, a community
it's the
service.
same scenario.
The same system. But there's some people that can't do that.
No, and I understand
So,
that,
And that's the part you're looking for, like, where do we?
But at the same time, even though they may not physically be able to do that, maybe there's some other areas, because you can help people get a job. We've got a great workforce that has been able to help individuals and so on and so forth. We just United Way talk about how they help individuals get into the workforce to be able to add back to the communities. But I get that but that's not always going to be the case.
There's a lot of people that are not employable, that are homeless. Those are the hard ones.
Yeah, and that's, in San Antonio, what they do, the homeless individuals, they have a lot of counselors involved. It's interesting how they do it, because people have been homeless for years, that they actually set up cots on the porch, and they slowly move back into the home, because they've been so homeless for years, and he was sharing with me some of the experiences that they've had with this, that ultimately they get moved into the home, and then they start to, but it takes a long time to get that. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. I'm just trying to figure out, is there an entity out there that could help us put this together? Are we talking about pioneering in this?
Supervisor Goodman, if I am of strong opinion that if you put out a request for proposals or a request for interest, that you will indeed have some high-capacity nonprofit organizations, probably, I don't want to name anybody other than
Okay.
others, but
Understood.
who will come to the table and say, we have ideas about how we can work with you, and we would be happy to do just that. And you are correct. This is absolutely intentional around a project. Let's build. We need the systems and capacity long term. It's not a one shot kind of thing. It's we want to be deliberate and intentional. So.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Back in the days, when I first met Martine, a long time ago, the community trust component you talked about, and I've looked into that a little bit. It's kind of a scenario where there is typically a single-family resident. Somebody moves into it as really an entry level of availability, rent-wise, but a portion of that rent kind of gets set aside to build up a deposit, a savings account. So they'll have a deposit in 5, 6, 8 years. Then they can go out and buy a house and then we recycle that same facility for another family to move in. Was that what you were referring to? And I think it was the slide before this one. And is that, I mean, I look at that land at 11 Mile Corner, and I think you could probably get, I don't know, 10, maybe even 12 units on that pretty easily. And would that be something, the county's incentive is we have the land and then have somebody figure out how to put the infrastructure in and then have that kind of a recycling scenario for entry-level homes for folks, you know, teachers, policemen, those types of people to come in.
Yeah.
Am I thinking right?
Yeah, so Supervisor Miller, I think we would be looking to our collaborator slash partner to really finalize the feasibility assessment, say this is the highest and best residential use of this probably part of that
Yeah.
particular parcel,
Yeah, I
because
do.
it's a very large parcel.
It is.
So, you know, this is the developable at this moment part. So I can't say for sure exactly, you know, which it will, what kind of, what type of housing it will be. When you speak to community land trust, which is, I believe, the question that you were asking me about.
Correct.
So the typical community land trust model, county land lease as well, I mean, can be structured in that way. A typical community land trust does one of two things. They either do a long-term land lease on a rental property, so I'm going to say an apartment complex, and that takes the land out of the, you know, there's a small fee for the land lease, and that takes the land cost out of the rent and enables the project to rent to a lower income level. And then the other is the single-family home ownership opportunity, where again, the land is separated from the structure. The land is leased. These are typically managed by nonprofit organizations. A lease payment is made to the community land trust, and a mortgage is taken out on the rest of the property. So the family qualifies for it. There might be some other assistance that goes along with that, so that the family, the purchaser qualifies for the mortgage. It does take some specialized real estate skills, and there are only a handful of lenders who will work with these kinds of properties. So the community land trusts tend to get very popular when housing costs are high. So there's been a few operating throughout Arizona for decades. One in Tempe, several in Tucson, Flagstaff are the locations where those have been operating. There's been a resurgence of community land trusts. I think for a while I was getting a call from, you know, somebody pretty much every week, like, oh, we want to do a community land trust, and somebody told me to call you. And so, you know, that's also an opportunity. When you're doing the purchase type of model, there's often like an equity share when the property sells, so that the property can be again resold to whatever the target income level is. So that initial buyer may not get 100% of their equity. There's kind of a formula that goes into that. And there's approved models, FHA, Fannie Mae, all of kind of the secondary market insurers have approved community land trust models. So it's very doable,
Okay.
yes.
That's good to know.
That's really good to know.
Because I don't think a lot of people understand that it's the land cost that establishes your product that you're going to sell. If I'm Mr. Developer, I'm out here, I buy this land and it's going to cost me this much per acre, and it's going to cost this much to develop it. I'm going to squeeze as many lots out of it as I can, narrow the streets down as best I can, and you know, but that's going to set whatever that final cost of that lot is 20, you multiply that times 5, and that tells you the target market price of your product that you're going to sell. And, you know, and those development costs and those land costs have gotten so high, you just end up. So the community trust thing has always kind of fascinated me, and something to look at. And it's good to hear that there are there's stuff out there that we could look at, not have to reinvent the wheel.
Most of this is not a reinvention.
Yeah.
It's just kind of refining it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what your intentions and expectations are. Yeah. So in addition to those actions, those systems and capacity and development actions around the 11-mile corner site, there's a couple other kind of parallel actions, if you will. One is engaging the Pinal County IDA so that we may be able to take advantage of some additional financing options that may include attracting a nonprofit to Pinal County or investing in rental or homeownership development. A second piece is mapping vacant, underutilized, and underdeveloped sites, and that's part of the community education campaign. Knowing where housing and the types of housing might go, rated very highly on the resident surveys. Like, people in particular want to know, where's the multifamily housing going to be located? So having that map is an early action. Workforce Development is actually working on some mapping right now and is going to be able to fold this information in. When we talk about housing preservation, which I'm going to focus on next, there's some early policy that needs to be refined or defined, and that's how do we use our HUD resources, that Home Investment Partnership, Community Development Block Grant, Housing Authority, Project-Based Housing Authority resources to invest in the rehabilitation of rental homes or the preservation of rental homes that may have had some kind of other government investment that had a period of time when the properties needed to be rent restricted and income restricted that may be expiring. And there's quite a few of those in unincorporated Pinal County coming up in the next several years. So getting those policies defined and refined, it's not rocket science, but it's incredibly important to be able to take on preservation activities. And then when it comes to economically sustainable housing development, we have the 11-mile corner site where we're talking about collaborating with a nonprofit or other developer and talking about, what kinds of incentives can we do at this particular location. My recommendation is seek a second site to pilot incentives at. It's strictly voluntary. Again, let it be known you're looking for somebody who would like to develop these types of housing to address the goals of the housing plan. If you have a site, perhaps you're trying to house workforce, whatever it is that you may be doing, please come talk to us about how we can work with you. And again, negotiated strictly on that location basis through policy. So as we move past that initial, those initial foundation activities, kind of that middle period allows us to put a greater focus on preservation. And this is where I would anticipate the Eloy sites would come in. By then, hopefully, we'll have some kind of an answer from HUD. They're a little lean on the staff to have these discussions with right now. But there are multiple sites that were housing authority sites in Eloy that are available to the county, and those discussions have been taking place. So as we look at preserving those particular sites, we would be kind of continuing all of those foundation activities, using those legal documents that have been created, building on our new partnerships and the community education program that we've started, and implementing those rental rehab and preservation policies that we've developed earlier in the plan. The final component as it relates to economically sustainable development is there's the Pinal Leading Affordable Housing Program, which I understand is, still not live, but this is the pre-approved plan program that is pending at the very moment. And the recommendation here is, let's figure out how we can perhaps use those plans. If it's a county-owned site and county partner developing, could we use those sites for that? There are some restrictions on how those plans are used. They're intended for owner-builders. And for that, and also for perhaps transferring property to a homeowner or a home buyer, and then helping them to oversee the reconstruction or rehabilitation. So that program really represents a long-term opportunity, not just in the new development arena, but also in the preservation arena, particularly if we're demolishing and clearing properties and having to rebuild. So there's a definite opportunity there. Another opportunity at these particular sites, because these are single-family homes, so another opportunity here, going back to the community land trust model, is, they come into the inventory, they're rehabilitated by our partner, or one or more partners, and sold. The land stays in the community land trust, and the structure itself is rehabilitated and sold through that community land trust model. So there's multiple opportunities to kind of build on those foundation activities with the properties in Eloy. So just like there were a couple of kind of side activities or parallel activities when we talk about the early years, there are some additional preservation actions that are recommended. One of these is identifying potential revitalization areas. So these are going to be areas where there's been disinvestment or a lack of investment, probably primarily older structures, some of which may be nuisance prone or dilapidated, uninhabitable. And really mapping conditions in selected areas, and then exploring the use of infill incentives to encourage investment in those areas. And so infill incentives are, can be just like the development incentives that I've touched on in the earlier actions, and with the exception here being anytime you're doing a revitalization area or infill incentive type of policy, you do reach out to all of the residents of the area and you notify them of the intent of what you're doing. Revitalization areas can also represent an opportunity if there is a desire for rental housing in an area to attract low-income housing tax credit developers, because there's always points given for revitalization areas in that process. So that can quickly help to attain the rental housing goal. So that's kind of, again, a preservation action. And then a final action there when we're starting to look at the economically sustainable development is we should be really assessing whatever barriers we may have to adaptive reuse of historic and other structures. Sometimes I'm sure we've all heard of the schools that have been converted to senior housing or artist housing, warehouses and office buildings that are being converted. So the question here is, how do we go about doing that? And then last but not least, we have our finishing touches. So, we're going to pretty everything up in those last several years of the 10-year plan. Of course, we want to celebrate long-term success. It's all about, let's continue to communicate with our residents about what our accomplishments have been, what we've been able to do, and evaluating and refining those incentives. So if we piloted incentives, now we have the opportunity to say, like, what worked, what didn't work? Are there some of these things that really should just become a permanent part of how we operate as a county? But that's long-term after we've had this opportunity to kind of test the waters with the development community itself. And there's only one action here in the very long term that's brand new, and that's designing and implementing a voluntary demolition and clearance program. And that kind of goes also along with the revitalization areas and the infill incentives and all of that. Once you've got that identified, you build on that by going through and doing some voluntary demolition and clearance. And sometimes those properties actually end up in a community land trust or provide some other opportunity for additional housing that could attain our goals. So that is all of the actions and all of the focus areas. Our plan is to, of course, get your additional feedback today. Post the plan to the housing plan website and take public comments for the next 30 days, and then come back to you with a refined plan that incorporates and acknowledges the comments that we've received in early May.
Okay, thank you. Any comment? Oh, I see one. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've always liked the voluntary demolition program, particularly if you could put that piece of land back into a new build on top of it at some place. A couple advantages there. Well, one, you get rid of blight. Second thing is, if you're a smart developer, you will not pay impact fees on the new build because it already had an impact, and so you get those impact fees waived. And I don't envision us in a lot of places, at least, and I know that some cities have really kind of taken that to help revitalize their downtown areas or their other areas, because the impact was established many, many years ago. But anyway, typically you can work something out where if you get that dilapidated building knocked down, they're not necessarily going to sit on a vacant lot. They probably want to turn it into cash, and it may be worth, somebody can buy it and build something new there. So I think that implementation, I think we could do that tomorrow. Our legal staff will help us draft something up. So, but anyway, I like it, and let's see how much of this we can implement and get done.
Supervisor Vidiello.
Thank you for that presentation. I just wanted to ask, so when you do the bidding process for whether it's the refurb of the house or build the house, do you get 3 bids? Do you use, if it's a refurb, do you use a GC that will bid out everything else? How does that work, so we understand?
I did it.
Ask Steve.
Chairman McClure, Supervisor Vitiello. So for the owner-occupied housing rehab program, we do put out a solicitation for general contractors. We have a list of 5, and then so it's kind of like a JOC thing, and we recycle through them to bid or provide a cost for each project.
Okay, I was just wondering if you bid out each individual, because the GC will mark up every single one of them.
Oh.
Being in the business prior, in the construction business, you get a GC, and then he goes to 5 of his plumbers, and the whole thing goes down the line. So you do bid it out to several different companies for a total number. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Sir, do you have any questions? No, I have none. You guys, you're good?
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
all for your attention this morning.
And with that, we have no more business before the board. We're adjourned.